all as can be expected. I don't know how else to put it. Wow.
Sorry, it's not great.
Huh?
I said, I'm sorry, it's not great.
Oh, yeah, I don't think it's ever been great. I don't, oh, there he is. I was gonna say, I have all these papers, but I don't see Brad Dehart, but he is there.
Under what, the mayor's report?
Well, it should take an hour or so.
Such a bummer.
My payoff.
Is that Tanner Elliott?
How's it going?
Mute my phone and I realized it's on the counter at home, so it's probably not gonna create a problem.
Well, that's true. You don't have to turn it off.
Hey, Brad. How's it going?
So is the chief undercover?
He has to leave at 6 for youth thing.
That's,
So he's not gonna be
that's the first thing.
So he's just gonna be here for a while and then he'll be here.
How are you?
Good.
Short time.
Want to trade places?
I don't think so. No. My plate's already getting full of other things.
Is it?
They've conned me into the softball board, so
Oh, good though. Good.
That will be really good for softball.
well, thank you.
You're welcome.
But I'm not taking a real stiff position the first year. I said I wanted to wait till I'm completely done with the city so I can
I'm waiting.
make sure that I stay concentrated, focused. So that the other thing is you get too deep in sometimes because you don't know when the girls are going to say they're not going to play.
Yeah.
You know, that you're
I think that's coming for us next year. I think
Call the meeting to order. Call the council.
Russ Brown,
Present.
Darcy Von Curtis,
present.
Linda Miller,
Present.
Tanner Elliott,
here.
Timothy McLaughlin is absent, Mayor Lawrence.
And the city attorney will be absent also. And I'm here. Please join me in pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. And we have two changes. One is under the consent agenda, and I was trying to discern this. Under C, are you taking out conference table and 6 chairs, or is that the only thing left?
Taking out.
Taking it out, okay. So, item C will just read approval to surplus library computers, 5 portable radios from the police department. All right, with that change, and, under 12, we'll have a 12A, which is Columbia Gorge Community College Workforce Project. With those two changes, do I have a motion regarding the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
I've been moved and seconded to approve the agenda as amended. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the agenda as amended is approved. Next item on the agenda is presentations and proclamations. We have ODOT construction update with Brad Dehart. And
Thank you. Sydney Bowman.
Cindy Bowman.
Sydney.
Okay,
Sydney.
Sydney?
Bowman, yes.
Oh, all right.
Thanks for having us, and
Welcome.
thanks for having us right at the beginning of the agenda, too. Appreciate that. we're here tonight to give you a presentation on two projects that we have coming up for construction. And I've been involved with one of them, and Sydney has been leading the other one. What's your actual title?
I'm a wildlife passage coordinator for the state. So I'm just as interim project leader.
So we just wanted to go over a few of the things that are going to be occurring. Both of these projects that we're going to be presenting information on have to do with the Brewery Grade interchange. So there's going to be a lot of work going on out there in the next spring and summer. The first one, I had provided copies of some select plan sheets. It's the I-84 Traffic Barrier Upgrades Project. We started that project back in 2016, the project development of it, and it's scheduled for bid later this fall. But the scope of the job includes a whole bunch of replacements of guardrail in treatments and that sort of stuff, all the way from Hood River clear out to almost Boardman or the Hefner Junction or Hefner Highway Junction. Also within that project, we're including bridge rail replacements on several structures. There's about 8 bridges that are going to have the rail replaced, and we're also putting new protective screening on several of those, including the Brewery Grade interchange. I think it was back in May of 2017, I was here talking to you guys about another project, the Riverfront Trail, and at that time, unfortunately, about a week before that, there had been a person who had jumped off the Brewery Grade interchange, and we talked a little bit about that. You may remember some of those discussions, and you had some questions for me at that time about what we had plans to do around that, you know. And I shared that at the time, we were in the project development process for this job, and we were going to be putting protective screening on the Brewery Grade interchange and the US 197 interchange. Since that time, through project development and the design process, it was determined that if we were to put protective screening on the 197 interchange, it would block sight distance for the interchange ramps. So that one is no longer included in this project. What we've done is ODOT's bridge section has sort of classified that as one that we want to put protective screening on, but we'll put it on that bridge at a later time when we're doing something more substantial that would allow us to address the sight distance issues, like a full bridge replacement or a widening or something like that. But we are, again, following through with the protective screening. I just wanted to take this opportunity to clarify that since we had that discussion back then. As I had mentioned, the schedule is for this project to go to bid in November 1st of this year, and construction will occur in the spring and summer of 2019. The project, as I mentioned, covers a lot of different items, from guardrail and barrier work and all that kind of stuff. But, and the entire job is estimated at $3.3 million throughout that entire stretch. The portion of the work on Brewery Grade, the protective screening, is only estimated at about $50,000 of the total project. But I know it's an important piece to you guys. And we also have some other work that we'll be talking about. One last thing that I was hoping to mention before any questions was the style. You'll see in those plan sheets that I provided you, it's what we call an architectural style of bridge screening. It's not a chain link fence painted black or anything like that. And within cities, we try and dress them up, make them look better, and this is a style that's been used on many other freeway interchanges for protective screening. One that you may be familiar with is the I-84 Hood River City Center or 2nd Street interchange. This is the same style as was put on that bridge. I don't know if any of you have noticed that they're through a process. That was a new bridge and a new protective screening, and there are some subtle silhouettes of Mount Hood within that. We're not putting subtle silhouettes of Mount Hood in this one, but it's still, I feel it's still a very nice architectural type of protective fence compared to some that we put on other bridges in more rural locations. So, with that, I can answer any questions that you might have related to that specific project, or we could go ahead and allow Sydney to give her presentation, and then just field questions if you'd like.
I do have a question or comment. I hear from a lot of truck drivers that come off of the Boat Basin exit 85, and it dead ends at Highway 30, that it's very difficult to get on Highway 30 going east. Is
Okay.
there something that can be done about that? And I think I've asked this question before because I hear it all the time.
Can you share a little bit more with me, Counselor, about what they consider to be the difficulty? Is it delay due to other traffic, or is it
Yes.
just the,
Yes. And it's specifically, it's the trucks. And
Yeah.
we're talking semis and
going to
truck
the
and
dump
trailer.
typically?
Yes.
I've never heard that concern, but I can certainly look into it with our traffic folks to find out whether there's anything that they might suggest that we do. I don't recall, I was involved with the city's transportation
Right.
system plan update. I don't
I don't
remember us
remember anything about,
raising that issue, but,
I did.
did you?
okay.
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it just takes them, I've watched this also, takes them, a slower time to get going, their momentum, and you've got traffic coming from both directions.
Yeah.
And so, if, you're sitting there waiting for enough separation to move on. That's what I've seen when I've seen them sit there for quite a while.
And one of the reasons they take that exit is because it's, even though it's difficult, it's easier than stopping on exit 87 and trying to get on 197.
Understood, and they can get a run at the hill. I do
Right.
remember hearing
Yes,
that.
yes,
They can get a run at the hill.
yes.
But,
Probably a signal would be about the only thing that would improve that
thinking,
intersection.
but I don't know if we want a signal there, but
Anything but a roundabout.
And one other thing is, I can't tell from this, and maybe I just don't know how to read it, but I've seen these screenings as having sort of a screen over the top like that, not just on the sides.
Straight up.
Is this gonna have that?
well, you mean like arches or
Yes.
something, like, US 190, or US 97, the Biggs interchange has
Right.
some, that's more of a,
So that somebody can't throw something up over the screen and down onto the freeway.
what we have in this, the height of it is based upon standards. I think it's supposed to be a minimum of 10 feet high for a distance of 12 feet beyond the fog lines on the roadway below, or something like that. Don't quote me on that, please, but it's something like that. So this one stair steps up, and it would be at least, it's either 8 or 10 feet high over I-84 below. over
So
the
it
lanes.
would arch back a little bit.
Oh, I understand what you're saying, maybe.
So, I
We're
mean,
talking
you're
about some
talking
sort of.
about not having
Oh.
somebody jump, but I'm
No,
talking about
it's just a
having
vertical-
people throw
It's
things.
just a vertical fence. You're talking about, would it slope back like a backstop on a ball field or
Yeah.
something like that? I've seen some like that, but that's not, I think we're choosing to go higher to make sure that large objects can't be hooked over
Right.
than, I think there's probably nothing that we can do if somebody's, very set on throwing something out on the freeway. It just,
Making it less handy for them.
thank you. Yeah. Why don't we go ahead and, let Sydney talk about her project, and then any other questions you have.
Thanks. Yeah, so my project is the Region 4 Intelligent Transportation System, and there's 3 components to it. The first one being some incidental camera upgrades along the Bend Parkway. There's also an illumination upgrade on Brewery Grade, where we're going to be installing LEDs. And there's also 3 road weather information systems that are going to be installed. So one of those is in the Dalles and the Brewery Grade, and there's one in Shanico and one along Buck Creek on Highway 20 as well. So the big portion, again, the bid opening is October 25th, so similar timing to Brad's project. And we anticipate work to begin in February and end in August of next year. So similar timeframes, but I think the portion for Brewery Grade will only take a couple of weeks, anticipating for the removal of the existing illumination and installation of the new light posts and RWIS. That's pretty straightforward.
Okay.
Will these be monitored for accident response?
The weather information and the cameras?
Yeah, the cameras.
Yes, yeah. That's for the purpose for weather conditions and for traffic and feedback for maintenance and the public.
The key component, as I see it for this project here at the Brewery Grade Interchange, is the replacement of all of our old streetlights out there in the interchange. There's something like 13 existing streetlights, and I think we're putting 14 back. We have 3 of those streetlights, or 2 of them today, are gonna be replaced with 3 under this project. Down on the Riverfront Trail, just immediately west, I say west, of the marina parking lot. We took that information to the Dallas Riverfront Trail Committee to just share what we were looking at, and got some great feedback from them about, we had some plans for a stripe to guide people out and around those, because the poles, the 2 that are there today are actually in the edge of the trail, or very close to the edge of the trail. The 3 new ones will also be close to the edge of the trail. So we had some stuff in our plans to show a fog line to kind of guide folks around that, and had quite a good debate with them about it, but they asked that we go ahead and remove that as part of the plans. They felt like if it was needed in the future, it's something that could easily be added, but they didn't want to, I would say, clutter, that's my word, which it was a good discussion, but they didn't want to clutter the Riverfront Trail with unnecessary signage and striping, and we've got that everywhere, so. We do still have a bit of a, I guess, something that we're working through is the nighttime work. You can imagine with traffic and working around interchanges, and ODOT is more and more moving to doing work on our highways at night. And both of these projects are no different. We have restrictions in here telling the contractor that they need to perform all of their work from, it varies between the project and which highway or roadway you're on, but basically from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. is a common restriction that we put on the contractor. They need to perform their lane closures or lane restrictions between 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. That, within the city limits, that goes against your noise ordinance, and so we've been working with your planning department on getting some information together for that. Typically what we do is any of those local type permits become the responsibility of the contractor to apply for and receive the permit. Given that we want both of these projects to be performed at night so that we don't end up with lots of traffic delays on I-84 or on Brewery Grade or on US 30 with the illumination that will come clear back to that T intersection. We're looking at working with you, the city manager, on making application on behalf of our contractor in advance so that we can work through and be more assured that we can give the contractor a project that he's gonna be able to perform at night. Or if it's something that we can't come to agreement on, then we need to make changes to our project and deal with the traffic issues and stuff like that, and give them the ability to work during the daytime.
Will the new light poles and stuff be mounted to the existing footings?
No,
No.
we're
Well, I
taking
mean,
those,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, new locations. And then you have the plan sheets for those as well, in the installation and removal.
They're hard to read.
Yeah.
I apologize.
That's
Happy to go over it with you if you have any questions.
Engineers
Yeah.
chuckle to themselves when they're making these drawings.
Yeah.
Council, have any other questions? Well, thank you very much.
That was easy.
Okay,
Thank you.
guys.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is audience participation. During this portion of the meeting, anyone may speak on any subject which does not later appear on the agenda. 5 minutes per person will be allowed. If a response by the city is requested, the speaker will be referred to the city manager for further action. The issue may appear on a future meeting agenda for city council consideration. Anyone wish to address the council? Yep.
I'm going to hand these out first.
state your name and your address, please.
My name is Emily Reed. I'm from Mosier, Oregon. I'm actually from Gorge Happiness Month. That's what I came to talk to you about. You participated last year and wanted to thank you for that and ask you to do so again in a really simple way of during your meetings in October to take a moment to do gratitudes at some point. Love to have you do that again. Wanted to tell a few things that are different this year. I will pass out, actually, if everyone wants to take one, it'll make more sense. But there are 4 interesting workshops and classes this year that I wanted to tell you about really quick. The first is on the 1st of October, and this is called Crossing the Political Divide. It is a great workshop that brings conservative and liberal, red and blue together in one room for an hour and a half, and they don't walk out killing each other. So it's actually a really interesting study on values, and it's a fascinating conversation. It is actually being hosted by the local GOP and with the local Democrats being invited as special guests. So that's at the library on the 1st, and I welcome you all. I think it'll be fascinating. The second thing is on the 3rd, the Purpose Workshop by the Blue Zones. We're super excited. We started this 3 years ago, and Blue Zones was just a whisper at that point, and we've been really excited to have them on board now and to be able to, we do just a little fraction of what they do, and so we're excited to be able to kind of help with that piece of what they're doing in terms of their studies. So they're going to be leading the Purpose Workshop on the 3rd and then in Spanish on the 8th. And then there's a gratitude art project. And this is a really interesting, lovely project that's free at the library at 6 p.m. It's an art project to do a heart that goes into this really neat traveling show. So that's going to be really interesting. And then finally, on the 23rd, we are looking at happiness at work. So we'll have a panel actually in Hood River on the 10th. That's super interesting, but then they'll give this free workshop to anyone who has staff or employees to help you instigate appreciation within your culture. So it's super easy. You walk away with a plan that's easy to implement, and again, all free and all about spreading happiness. Also, we have these big posters, so if anybody has a staff lounge or a place to put it up at work, we have these big posters that we're giving away for free. You can put stickers on them for any time you do a gratitude or an act of kindness or a moment of silence, which are the 3 habits that we're promoting with Happiness Month that are scientifically determined. Would you be willing to participate again?
Yes.
Sure.
Thank you. Any questions?
Do you have contact information, because that's beautiful.
Yes.
Where is it?
If you go to this URL, if you go to the website, there's a phone number on the bottom.
Oh, let me see.
Yeah, and we're signing up any other businesses as well as partners. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thanks.
Anyone else? Yes?
Hello, Honorable Mayor and City Council members. My name's Sloan Barengo. I live at 2400 Fairview Street in Dalles, Oregon. And with me is Beverly Sherrill.
My name is Beverly Sherrill, and I live at 4405 Highway 30 West, number 703 in the Dalles.
We're here today as citizens of the Dalles to present information regarding voter registration and National Voter Registration Day, an annual event coming up on September 25th, 2018. Prior to the primary election in May, Beverly and I held nonpartisan voter registration events at Columbia Gorge Community College. I also did voter registration at the high school with local resident Bob McNary, who's here in the room. Voter registration events are pretty simple, and at the college, Beverly and I set up in the cafeteria for about an hour each week. We would talk to students about registering to vote and the upcoming May election. Beverly and I have scheduled a National Voter Registration Day event on Tuesday, September 25th from 9 to 4 at the Riv Cafe.
So today, we would like to propose that the city of the Dalles declare a citywide voter registration day in conjunction with National Voter Registration Day on September 25th, 2018. Whereas on September 25th, 2018, Americans will celebrate National Voter Registration Day as a massive 50-state effort to register voters before Election Day this November. And whereas with midterms and governor races that will be happening within a few weeks, every eligible American voter should exercise his or her right to be heard at the ballot box this year and next. And whereas Oregon now has voter registration through the DMV and online at oregonvotes.gov, National Voter Registration Day is when the entire nation focuses on registering Americans to exercise their most basic right, the right to vote.
Therefore, Beverly and I request that the City of the Dalles issues a proclamation declaring Tuesday, September 25th as National Voter Registration Day in the Dalles. Thank you.
Any comments or?
I think it's a good idea.
Would you like to have that formalized into a city proclamation for the next meeting then?
The next meeting is the 24th,
Forward.
one day before that. I think, you know, if we have a motion here, we can probably go ahead and have it put together and then issued as a press release rather than waiting until the 24th and, you know, we can formalize it on the 24th, but.
I don't think you would need to if you want to do that tonight. then.
Right. Right. So anybody want to initiate that? I didn't understand, did I hear you say also the 17th was a national day? There's no other day. 25th is
The 25th
the
is
same,
today.
okay.
Yeah, it's one day.
But voter registration is open through October.
October 16th is the last day to register to vote for the November election. Yes, but this is, you know, in preparation for getting people registered, do it in September, get the word out. We still have until October 16th. Not to say that there won't be other voter registration events, but this is something that's been promoted nationally for years, and it seemed like a really good idea.
It's also a great way to make registered voters aware of the midterm because there's historically low turnout at midterm elections.
So you need a motion
Yeah.
tonight to declare it? Is that all? And then do a press release? Okay, so I'd like to make a motion that the Dalles City Council declares September 25th to be citywide voter registration day in conjunction with the National Registration Voter Day, and that we issue a press release.
I'll second.
All right. Been moved and seconded, I'm not gonna repeat it. As stated, any further discussion? Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
Thank you.
Thank
And we will
Thank
do
you.
an official proclamation that I will sign and date, but then that will go out with the news media statement.
Thank you. Thank
All
you
right.
very much.
And I'll give a copy of this to the clerk.
Oh, good, thank you.
Nice preparation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Try not to fall down getting there, it wouldn't look good.
I know.
Be entertaining though, Bob.
Okay, I'm Bob McNary, my address 1525 East 9th. I'd like to had time to come up and talk, but Brad was still here. I think it's something that our city police department and our city public works ought to have foresight to think about. When these garbage trucks, I'm living in such a location that I can count them pretty easily. When these garbage trucks come in the morning, they're mixed in with the morning traffic that's trying to get to work. And I have seen them back the traffic clear down on their off-ramps and clear to the bridge. That is okay, because it's moving. But what happens if we have an accident at the intersection of that bridge and Highway 30 to disrupt the traffic flow east or west. One morning, one of them did break down right in the middle of all that. And there was some fast going around, but they did their own thinking. And somebody dug out a chain from somewhere, and I presume that the truck that broke down dropped the driveline. So he still had his air and had his control, so they got a hook of him, on him, and hauled him out of harm's way or out of everybody else's way. But there's gonna be a lot of people late for work if we have any kind of an accident there at all. Because I've sat there and studied this, and this is part of my job when I worked in construction, was to keep traffic moving. And that's gonna be a challenge for everyone to figure out nowadays how we're gonna do it. Worked so nice when the westbound traffic went under the bridge, and it was, there was no problem getting off of the interchange, getting onto Highway 30 and go east. But after we put the roundabout in, that underpass is no longer usable for that reason. And so they all come across there and they're all surface traffic. I don't have an answer. I'm just saying that maybe it would be a good idea if our police department and public works dreamed up worst case scenario. We've got an accident, maybe some kind of an injury accident, east and westbound on 30 could very likely be closed. And so what are they gonna have to do next? Thank you.
Yep, thank you, Bob. Anyone else?
Post office box 81.
Can you state your name and address and, yeah,
I did, but I'll do it again. Lorraine Hunt, Post Office Box 81, Dalles.
thank you.
And I just came from Eugene, and I thought the meeting started at 6, so if I look like I'm not ready, I'm not ready, so. And my husband said, doesn't it start at 5:30? So I just jumped in the car, so just pardon me, but this is to all the important people in this room. And I stated in this way so that no one will be excluded, because we're all important. This is hard. It is with sadness and a heavy heart that I will make my way from Eugene this afternoon, this city council meeting, the only reason that makes it imperative in my mind and heart to do so. I have come to set the record straight and to address values which I hold dear, values which I pray the city of the Dalles can move towards, even baby steps, a cause for celebration. It was not until barely a week ago that when I read the city's records of past meetings, that I ran across an inaccurate letter that mischaracterized and misrepresented my husband and myself. I want the city council to know, and everyone else who may have read such a letter who follows the city's business, that my interactions with one household were not shared by me with a single soul on earth, not even my husband. My apology for showing up at the door obviously unaccepted, and it would have remained unknown to anyone had the letter not come to the city. I've decided not to refer back to the letter again now for specifics. I didn't look at it today because I didn't want to, nor to identify the household, protecting their anonymity unless someone wants to dig into past meetings, but please don't do that. Allow people to grow in advance. For whatever reason such negative responses erupted, I knew to respect the dignity of those individuals and not share those interactions with anyone, not even my husband, allowing every other person to have their own experience of these individuals without being tainted by my story of that experience. Since the other party made it a matter of public record, I feel I must set the record straight, something that happened today, punctuating the need for addressing civility with each other. I do this remembering the incredible man our country laid to rest in recent days, people always coming first in his dealings throughout his years. So many stories of his care for real people touching my heart as I listened to service after service, his stature growing as the week progressed. I am guided by his life as I address this matter. So let me say that I only called this household to apologize immediately after I saw the two people there. And I wrote them an apology for offending them in any way known or unknown to me, and I offered condolences in other ways which I won't share here. I spoke and wrote highly of their daughter whom I had met, a misunderstanding occurring evidently. And then, needless to say, when I received phone calls from the woman in that household, I could not listen to the first one in its entirety due to its content. It's very difficult for me. And I avoided listening to all the others as well, agonizing over what to do, if anything, and I never returned a call or contacted that household again, wanting to give them space and respecting them, except to do so when I required, and a notice of intent to appeal, you're required to send out notices to people that sent letters, so I sent one out. May I say, had that letter not shown up in a public place, no one on this earth would know, even now, about these interactions that I can truly say I've never had before and will make attempts to avoid in the future. Not even my husband knows about this letter, and he's not here and he'll never know. He won't read the city record, he doesn't have time to do it. I don't want him burdened by this. But when I asked him about his presence at the property referred to in that letter, he had no knowledge of any duplex where a daughter of this couple lives, and he said he has only a few times walked down the street to investigate what he thought was questionable activity, and would not just have stared at anyone with whom he could have conversed regarding such questionable activity. Our area has a neighborhood watch that has brought the police to our door when we didn't know anything was amiss, and we appreciate such concern about safety. We really just appreciate that kind of thing. So I was in Eugene today until this afternoon, and it was today that the need for civility in matters occurring in the Dalles was punctuated by our son's discovery in the July 23 minutes, just this morning, what was described as a threat from a partner of the developer in our neighborhood to the person bringing an appeal to the city council regarding a neighborhood issue that has been very difficult in two neighborhoods. Had the city chosen to recommend to the developer to meet with the neighbors in both neighborhoods before proceeding with plans, discourse could have resolved differences, as they did on 13th Street a few years ago in such a meeting, within 300 feet of the development happening right now. No hearings or appeals necessary, no threats or degrading letters necessary, only progress. People treated with kindness and civility, persons respected, families valued, contributions valued, needs valued. I ask, and I want an answer, did the city recommend to the developer that he meet with neighbors, and that this is in the city code, that's a recommendation, particularly important in low-density areas? If not, why not? If so, of course it's obvious that he ignored that recommendation. Does the city not prefer these matters to be dealt with ahead of hearings when civil discourse is more possible than when adversarial settings have already been established? Threats unnecessary? Letters such as the one I referenced to in the record not at all necessary? So, based on the success of such meetings in the past, avoiding these pitfalls, I strongly urge that the City Council make such a meeting in low-density areas a requirement. With people, because people have moved to these areas for reasons that are life-altering. Health, only one critical and high-priority reason. Those are my questions. Does the city recommend? And if not, why not? And my recommendation is that the city look at this and change the city code to require those meetings in low-density areas where people move there for a specific reason. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to address the council? Okay, next item on the agenda is the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. Pared down my list a little bit tonight. I have one request for the safety funds, which are in the city council budget. We currently have $45,646 in that line item. And I have requests for several more of the Very desks, the ones that for standing up. Those have become very popular with everyone who already has them. So we have a total of 16, which includes mostly the library because they didn't get any last time, for a total cost of $6,615. That leaves a balance of about $39,000. And we don't know yet what our dividend is going to be because I understand they're meeting this week, so we'll know in a week or so, but then we'll have more funds coming into that line item. So I would ask for approval of that tonight. You want to do that before I go on?
I would do that first. Anybody have any, yes?
No, I approve.
It's okay with me?
Can we
I
just go
agree.
by consensus? I mean, I think you have a lot of discretion anyway, but does anybody object to that?
No.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very
That's what
much.
the money's there for.
It is. We're trying to be prudent with it.
Thank you for asking.
Lisa Farquharson is not able to be here tonight, but she provided me with some information on Friday that I wanted to share with the city council, that the Washington DC, the US Capitol's Christmas tree this year is coming from Sweet Home, Oregon. And so they're doing a theme that's called Find Your Trail, and it's like a reverse Oregon trail. So they will be stopping in the Dalles with the Christmas tree on their way through. So we'll have a little opportunity for a celebration. Lisa and I will kind of get that worked on. So I thought that was exciting news. And then I sent you an email, I think a few weeks ago, just to let you know there was some interest in the old golf course property over at the airport from a development group, and they are moving forward in their interest, so I just wanted to let you know, because it seems like it's moving a little bit quickly. They're planning to prepare a draft memorandum of understanding for that property to go to the airport board, probably within a month. And then if the airport board approves, they'll recommend to the city council in Klickitat County as far as moving forward with a development. So I just kind of wanted to keep you in the loop that that is a serious proposal that should be coming forward soon. And you have one piece that you're going to do under your report,
Yes.
Mayor. And I just let you know that we did install the temporary mid-block crosswalk at the Dry Hollow School that was there last year as kind of as a pop-up. And then we'll include in our Safe Routes to School grant to make that a permanent crosswalk.
Okay. You're, at this point, it's anticipated that will be the permanent design, because I'm already hearing complaints.
Oh, I haven't heard any complaints. Is Dave here? Have you heard any
We
complaints?
had a neighborhood meeting last week, and we have one concern that we're working on. I don't know if they're, and that was just would be adjacent property owner and
The
people
bump.
walking on our lawn
Oh.
and things like that. So if there are others, it would be helpful to hear those.
The specific complaint I got was that people were still parking on the street and very little use of that turnaround. Now, I haven't gone down there and watched it occur, but
The turnaround on the.
On the
school
gravel?
district, Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, and I think that they're gonna be, the school had indicated they're gonna work on education and outreach to encourage.
maybe that's what needs to happen.
Yeah, and they were gonna be, I think they're actually focusing on certain grades, because that's more helpful during the pickup time. Certain grades are just being discharged that way, so I think that the use of that will increase with some education.
The sidewalk.
What's all the dirt from coming down Lewis onto 19th?
We had a 6-inch water main break.
Okay.
Is that a water main that was worked on sometime
Yeah,
recently?
there was one within the last year.
Last winter, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It's the 6-inch in Lewis Street, and I think we went up and we addressed just kind of a slow leak in there. That was a slow continuous, and this was a pretty major failure that they addressed Saturday night.
Was it the same pipe? Is that what you're saying?
Same
I
main.
don't know, I think it probably was, yeah.
So what's the plan now?
Well, they've repaired it, and the road will be put back if it wasn't already today. I wasn't in the office today, so.
Does it need to be replaced?
Possibly, it's probably the same, it's, probably in that vintage, which is, we have a lot of it. In the era when the cast iron that was made was the worst quality cast iron of kind of the 3 generations of pipe installations.
So it's not,
About a 50-year life.
it's not ductile?
No, I think it might still be cast,
Yes.
but I'm making an assumption on that. We've never.
Ductile's pretty bulletproof.
We have yet had a ductile failure unless this one goes.
Okay.
Every main break that we've had in the last 20 years, we went back through and we checked a few years ago, have been cast iron breaks.
That was my only report.
Are you reporting anything on behalf of the city attorney who's not present
I
tonight.
volunteered, but he said no, thank you.
You didn't have your license. Okay, city council reports. Councilman Brown.
Surprisingly enough, I do have a little report tonight.
Surprise,
Um,
surprise.
Some people may or may not know that the city has a traffic safety committee that addresses issues about stop signs, loading zones, handicap zones, regulatory, like speed signs, and makes recommendations to the city manager. And we had a particularly good conversation at the last meeting that I thought I'd share with everybody. The first one that I'd like to share concerned the traffic accident that took place shortly after the cruise last month. And lots of good recommendations came out of that, and the parties that are involved with that, the car club, Main Street, the police, everybody involved agreed to get together and come up with a plan to possibly minimize the likelihood of something like that happening in the future. The event, of course, I'm sure will continue to happen. But it was a good conversation. And the other one was, the state put a higher fine on the use of cell phones in the automobiles, and we have a city police officer as well as a state police officer in attendance at our meeting, and I asked them how that was working out, and surprisingly found out from the city police officer that that cell phone tickets are not being written for the $1,000 fine. They're being written for, I don't know, less than $300. And they were advised to do that by the city manager, or not, excuse me, not the city manager, city attorney.
I thought it was a city judge. who said-
Well, I was told that Gene was the one that told the police officers.
Okay.
And we felt like we were kind of circumventing the state's efforts to discourage cell phone use by lessening the bail. The judge is always able to lower it during court, and it never goes up. So we made some recommendations as far as possibly having a diversion class that would, first-time offenders would be able to sign up for the diversion class and get their bail reduced considerably. But we all agreed that the $1,000 fine that was put in place by the state was probably a good tool, and if we didn't use it, we probably were being less than responsible in our duties. So I shared that with the city attorney, and depending on what he does with it in the next couple of weeks, or I guess we got another meeting coming up in a week, I think, a little over a week, we may make a formal request to the, or a recommendation, excuse me, that the committee will make a formal request that the bail be put at $1,000 in the future. So that's about it.
Okay. Councilman Long Curtis.
So it was a pretty slow month, obviously, but I did attend the business after hours that the chamber puts on up at Columbia Gorge Community College. I met the new president, Marta Cronin, and also attended an urban renewal meeting. And we are in the process of drafting a DDA for the purchase of the recreation building. And so that'll outline the requirements in order for that purchase to go through timelines and things like that. And then I also wanted to make a request of the council. I would like to have an update on the Ameritise situation. We haven't had a formal update on that in the 2 years that I've been on council, and I'm just curious to have a presentation.
Is that it?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Councilwoman Miller.
I attended a Dallas Sister City meeting that we're trying to put together a agenda, schedule for the students and delegation that are also going to be some city council members from Miyoshi and a vice mayor that will be coming. And we're basically just getting started and getting some information for that delegation. I attended the car cruise and the Neon Sign Museum that was opened that weekend. And I also attended the Urban Renewal Agency meeting that Councilwoman Long Curtis discussed. That's it.
Councilman Elliott.
I also attended the urban renewal meeting, and that's all I have to report.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna start by saying, welcome back. A week off, month off. The first thing I'd like to do is read. This comes from the Government Finance Officers Association of the United States and Canada. And this is a presentation of award of financial reporting achievement to Angie Wilson, Finance Director, City of the Dalles, Oregon. And let me read what it says. It says, the award of financial reporting achievement is presented to the Government Finance Officers Association to the individuals designated as instrumental in their government unit achieving a certificate of achievement for excellence in financial reporting. A certificate of achievement is presented to those government units whose annual financial reports are judged to adhere to program standards and presents the highest award in government financial reporting. So this is dated July 17, 2018. Thank you, Angie, and thank you to the whole financial department. So I went to Florence during the time off for the mayor's conference, and I'll just say that the most exciting news that happened there was an explanation that the League of Cities has been meeting with the Oregon Restaurant Association about the use of transit room tax or tourist tax. And it was represented to the mayors in attendance that there will be a proposal in the legislative session which starts in 2019 to broaden the use of tourist dollars to include sporting events and all associated costs, and festivals and all associated costs, rather than the limitation that they've had on it now. And again, we'll have to wait, we'll have to see what happens in committee and what comes out, but the Restaurant Association has really been the one who has kind of policed it. If you recall, they sued Ben because they didn't think they were spending the money properly, so it was very necessary for the League of Cities to meet with them, and my understanding is they have an agreement, so we'll see what happens. That was pretty exciting to the mayors. I also attended Al Wynn's 10,000th show. I think several other people here did. That was really phenomenal. It was 2 hours, and people from all through the community showed up, and particularly people from other radio stations, and congratulated him on that, so that was a good event. I was one of 3 mayors that went to the Wyeth State Park Trailhead and got a review of the latest development in the King of the Roads upgrade, which right now is waiting for money for the last section, which is the Mitchell Point Trailhead, and they expect that money and construction to start in 2020. And they really are hoping that by 2022, the entire trail will open. And I say again to this community, we better be ready, because we're gonna get some bicycle traffic, and maybe more than we expect right now. I attended a McCog meeting, and it was the last step in dissolving and putting to bed the finance records, et cetera. Right now, they're working toward finding out what the balance is after all the debts are paid. And this does not include, by the way, the trust fund for building codes. That stays with building codes. But this is other monies that were in the budget for McCog after the debts were paid, after the building was sold. And then there will be a division among the people who are members according to what they paid in the last 2 years. The anticipation is that the city is going to receive somewhere near $103,000. Yeah, put that into your budget. I attended the Google Growth Seminar, which was up at the Readiness Center. Huge event. We were trying to figure out how much Google had invested in that. They had so much staff that, I mean, it had to be a lot of money. And they explained to us that this was the first one on the West Coast. They had literally come from Alabama to the Dalles. And that was a big success for nonprofits and businesses who wanted to upgrade their abilities and improve their businesses through tools that Google was willing to show them and demonstrate and teach them about. I attended and was one of the servers at the Wasco County Senior Lunch. And anyone here who hasn't done that, you might think about that. It's always the Thursday of the Wasco County Fair, and we get over 100 seniors, and the serving is all done by elected officials, and it's really rewarding. It's always fun. And then last but not least, well, no, I attended the neon sign soft opening again, and then last but not least, with the Lions Club, we helped control traffic for the Ironman this last weekend. And I was sitting here thinking about that when Brad Dehart was talking about that. There's a lot of people that come in from the east. I mean, that was my position, and it was like, stop. There were a lot of people over, we were there for 4 hours, and a lot of people really use that off-ramp. You just don't realize it until you stand there. So anyway, that was a fun event also for me. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Items of a routine and non-controversial nature are placed on the consent agenda to allow the city council to spend its time and energy on the important items and issues. Any councilor may request an item be pulled from the consent agenda and be considered separately. Items pulled from the consent agenda will be placed on the agenda at the end of the action items section. Under the consent agenda, there's approval of the July 23rd, 2018 regular city council meeting minutes, amended memorandum of understanding with D21, allowing enterprise zone funds to be used for Dry Hollow Elementary drop-off project, approval, as I said before, of surplus library computers, 5 portable radios from the police department. Approval of resolution 18-023, concurring with the mayor's appointments to various committees. Approval of museum commission bylaws update, which is in your packet. And last but not least, Hunt request for a refund of 8 appeal fees on 13th and Perkins. Do I have a motion regarding the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda as amended. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Next item on the agenda, public hearing. Informational public hearing regarding proposed reimbursement fees for the 18-inch diameter Port Industrial Water Pipeline Reimbursement District. That's a mouthful.
It is a mouthful. Honorable Mayor, members of council, a reimbursement district related to the construction of a new 18-inch pipeline to the port was formed in February 8th, 2016, and that district was formed prior to construction of the pipeline. It was formed for the benefit of Design LLC, which provided half of the funding for the construction of that project. At the time that the district was formed, estimated costs of construction were utilized to then calculate and estimate what the reimbursement fees would be. The project's now been completed, the pipeline's been constructed. The city municipal code requires that when a district is formed prior to construction, the council has to hold a second informational meeting utilizing the information from the actual cost of construction, and that's the purpose of the public hearing tonight. The pipeline project was completed under budget. Therefore, the proposed reimbursement fees are less than those that were presented in the original report in February. There were a couple of other revisions that had to be made, updates that are identified in the Public Works Director's report for this reimbursement district. One of those things is that some of the properties have changed ownership since the district was originally formed, so the current ownership is reflected in the Public Works Director's report. Some of the properties have undergone some property line adjustments and relocations, so the acreages have been updated. It was originally proposed that 5 acres of the Norcor property, which is currently undeveloped, be included in the district. When we finally completed the project and the ultimate routing that was selected for the pipeline, the selected route will not serve that property, so we're proposing to remove that 5 acres from the reimbursement district. If that 5 acres develops in the future, it can still be supplied from the Weber Street side, so we're not losing any development opportunity. It's just a revision to the properties included in the district. And lastly, when the district was being formed in 2016, some of the property owners requested that the basis for the calculation of the fees be based upon net developable acres because of the existence of wetlands and the restrictions that would be associated with them rather than total acre or total parcel size. At the time that the original Public Works Director report was drafted and presented, the city did not have enough information from all the parcels to be able to be consistent and do that. We now have that information, and so we're proposing to accommodate that request and base the reimbursement fee upon the basis of net developable acres rather than total acreage for the parcels. As far as budget implications, Design LLC has paid their $1,000 application fee for the formation of a district. If the district is approved tonight, there'll be a $50 per lot, with 4 lots being included. That'd be a total of $200 that would be paid to the city as far as the administrative fee. The terms would remain the same as were outlined in the original report, in that reimbursement fees would accrue interest at 3.5% simple interest per year from the time that the district was formed up until a connection to those improvements might be made. And the reimbursement fee that was calculated for this district will be $3,732.44 per acre of developable land as connections are made. You may recall reimbursement districts remain in effect for a maximum of 15 years, and then they expire. Following the public hearing tonight, staff's recommendation would be to move to adopt resolution number 18-024, establishing a reimbursement district and reimbursement fees for the 18-inch port industrial water main improvements reimbursement district as presented in the Public Works Director's report.
So, did you get my question?
I did not.
Okay.
He just said it was 15 years in the ordinance.
Well, but that wasn't what was represented in the first place. I remember something around 7 years that the obligation would expire.
I don't know why you remembered that.
I don't.
When that was originally presented, Design LLC said that they would pay for 50%, they would be reimbursed by anybody who hooked up within a certain amount of time, and then if they didn't hook up within that amount of time, then the obligation would go away, and it was not 15 years.
Isn't that normal amount of time?
It is.
That may be the normal amount of time. That wasn't the original discussion.
I believe, and I've got the old Public Works Director's report, because we didn't allow or provide any exceptions. I'm sorry, I don't remember any discussion about any different period of time. The city's previously ordinance and now municipal code identifies that reimbursement districts are to be in effect for 15 years, so.
Well, I think we need to do some research, because I'm not confused.
So you're suggesting you'd like it to be a shorter period of
I'm
time?
suggesting it was offered by Design LLC
But
to expire over a shorter period of time if no one hooked up to it within that time frame.
But if it's part of our, ordinance or code or whatever it is, I can't imagine that we
Well,
could.
that may be the
just-
case, but I'd like it explained to me if,
So-
if in other words, this only way that it can be done is per the ordinance and no other agreement could be made, but I'm just telling you what was represented.
So I have in front of me the the agenda staff report from when I think we ended up postponing it. This one's actually made out for January 11th, 2016. And in the first paragraph, the last sentence states, once formed, the district will remain in effect for a period of 15 years. And improvements must be constructed to city standards. So I'm unaware of any discussions that have happened about an alternative period of time related to this reimbursement district.
I will just have to do my own research then.
Was Design LLC noticed of this public hearing and invited to attend?
All the property owners, one of the requirements within the reimbursement district municipal code now is that property owners are noticed, it's either 10 or 14 days prior to the hearing, and those notices occurred, and we have certified mail receipts for those notices.
So they know what was proposed and they haven't objected so far?
And when I send those notices out, I send a copy of the Public Works Director's report with them. I don't rely on them getting online and following up.
Okay, good.
That would be in the council meeting of September 12th, 2016, so that's where I'll look it up. What would you need today? Today, we're just having a public hearing, and if someone wants to comment,
So this would, yes, tonight was the, holding that public informational hearing.
Okay.
And then providing the council to consider whatever testimony they might receive and adopt the resolution, which would finalize the formation of the district. If the council wanted to, I think there would not be a problem with postponing adoption of the resolution. If there's an outstanding question, I defer to Julie on that, but all of those things can happen tonight if council desires.
If this was put together within the scope of our ordinance and it hasn't deviated from how they've always been done, I'm in favor of making a motion, and if the mayor finds some poison pen letter in there someplace or something, I mean, I don't know how it can change if all the documentation thus far indicates that it was set up as a 15-year.
well, I could be wrong, so
Well, it would
I will
just be
take a look at
the
it.
city being more lenient than.
Well, yeah, I understand.
That's not bad.
It seems to me that it would be to the disadvantage of Design LLC to have a shorter period of time because
More difficult to read.
you
Yeah.
know,
Sure.
having it longer provides more opportunities for the other properties to connect.
So we would need to ask if there's any testimony.
You want me to make a motion?
Sure.
We can't. Don't we
I
need to have
can't.
public?
Well, we need to have
Comment.
the opportunity for public comment.
Oh.
Any questions for Mr. Anderson before I ask? No?
None for me.
Okay. Is there anybody who wishes to offer public comment regarding this reimbursement district proposal? All right. So hearing none, we will have a motion.
I would move to adopt resolution number 18024, establishing a reimbursement district and reimbursement fees for the 18-inch Port Industrial Water Main Improvement Reimbursement District as presented in the Public Works Director's report.
Second.
All right, been moved and seconded to accept and approve resolution 18-024, establishing reimbursement district for water. Is that right? The water system improvements from Weber Street to River Road and establishing reimbursement fees. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
Thank you.
So the next item, thank you, on the agenda is Columbia Gorge Community College Workforce Project. And we've been given information tonight, and with an addition to the agenda. If you'll recall, Mr. Spots was here once before and indicated to us that there was movement afoot. And now I understand that the Gorge Community College Board of Directors has voted unanimously to go forward with the Skill Center and the housing proposal. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that is correct, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. And you have a specific request which is submitted in the documents.
Correct, sir. And my purpose in appearing tonight is to learn what additional questions the council may have of this before we actually put this request before you. This is, of course, a significant decision for the city, as it has been for the College Board. And if I may provide a little background and kind of a recap as to where we've been and where we are now, if that would be all right. The state legislature, sir, thank you for the time on this. The state legislature has allocated $7.3 million to the college for the construction of a skill center, a high bay, flexible space workforce training center on the college campus. We have space on the existing campus for things like renewable energy, for some limited welding training, for the nursing program, other career tech opportunities. We do not have high bay flexible space for things like auto and diesel mechanics, aviation, machining, expansion of the welding program, and whatever else may be coming down the horizon over the next 10 to 15 years, and one never knows as quickly as the economy changes in the Columbia Gorge. So the Skill Center would allow us to meet immediate needs, urgent needs, and auto and diesel mechanics are right at the top of the list, but also whatever needs might be down the road. This without the need to go to a local bond measure. The catch is we need to match that $7.3 million allocation dollar for dollar. Originally, that was looking entirely at local funds for 7.3. That changed last summer when the Department of Justice made the determination that the state could use, that the college could use investment in campus housing as match for the 7.3. We knew there was a need for housing. We didn't know the extent of that need, so we conducted a survey of students this past December, and about a year ago, the college, the city council generously allocated use of $30,000 from the city's own fund for a market study, feasibility analysis of the housing project. We conducted that. We conducted the housing survey of our students, learned that, yes, we can put some numbers behind that. Upwards of 10% of the respondents sleeping in their cars or in shelters while they're attending class. So we know the need is there, and the feasibility analysis determined that there is a demonstrable market case, a business case behind the housing project. We can build it even with upwards of a 26% occupancy rate. We can make that fly, but we need an injection of $3.5 million in equity to do so. So the College Board has spent the past several months, number one, in anticipation of the arrival of our new president. They didn't want to make this type of commitment. The college is looking at a $3.8 million investment of its own. They did not want to make that type of decision until we had a new president on board to learn his or her, as it turns out, her recommendation on this, and Dr. Cronin is firmly in support of this project. Also, the College Board wanted to learn more about workforce need in our area and also alternative locations. Did we have to build this on campus? Are there any physical locations in the city of the Dalles that would support what we're talking about? We've done the research. We have found very few, frankly, no spaces that would meet the need that we have there. And we have done the research on the workforce side. 1,200 or more positions that go vacant right now across our larger region because employers cannot find employees, skilled employees. That example in particular is diesel mechanics, but we see other examples like that elsewhere. Again, that's present need. What is it going to be in 5 or 10 or 15 years? This space will provide for that need. So we see this as meeting the city's goals for economic development. The housing component of this is the #1 priority in the Mid-Columbia Economic Development District Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy in this current year, and it is a top priority for the outreach team as we go back to Washington, D.C. later this month, looking for what one of our senators once characterized as budget dust, 3.5 million. So we're looking under every stone for that 3.5. We've approached USDA Rural Development as a logical source for this. Their entire national budget is about $4 million in grant funding. So we pretty quickly ruled that one out. We have not given up entirely on a loan from USDA Rural Development, but that would be for the 3.8 million component of this, not the 3.5. Right. And even at that, they require a NEPA analysis that's going to take the better part of a year. So the time is working against us right now. We have until January, sometime in January, to match 7.3 million. Again, 3.5 million is our request to the enterprise zone partners, the city, the county, the port, with the college board being willing to take on that debt of 3.8 million. Now, if they can reduce that, they would be delighted, but that was the unanimous decision of the college board last month. And that's why I'm here before you today, to see what questions you may have. Again, not expecting a decision, but what information you would need from the college in order to reach a decision on this, and then I would come back.
I'd like to clarify something. Under budget implications, the city manager has said, you know, removing enterprise zone funds from the general fund would be a negative impact. I wouldn't see the present budget as being that which would be at least a possible solution to this. I would see the, you know, I call it Google 3, but it's a Taylor Lakes project where the agreement is already in place. There are payments that will be due over 15 years. We expected the first payment to be this year because we expected last year that they would be concluding and getting their occupancy permit within 2017. They didn't do it.
Yeah.
So under the rules, they don't have to pay us until 2019 because they got their occupancy in 2018. And right now, we're not even sure of the total amount of money available, but we know that on the first true-up of what they've billed, that it will be about $1.2 million per year for 15 years. And the port isn't our partner in the enterprise zone that existed at the time. They are the partner in the new enterprise zone. So
Going forward. Correct.
the way this happens is that the county have to decide what happens to that money, which would be at least 1.2 million. We think it's going to be maybe 700,000 or 800,000 more even because they've started to build phase 2, but we don't have that true up either. So ostensibly, Design LLC could say, well, we're not going to make our first payment until December of 2019 if they wanted. But maybe there's a possibility of getting them to pay something early. And so I think what you're asking is for, and I think what the letters seem to indicate from the fire district and from the school district is that in spite of the fact that in the past they've sort of grumbled about how the city and the county have decided to use the money, that for this they support it. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. We did presentations to the school board and to the fire district board. They do have concerns over the allocations process,
Right.
but they see the value of this project, and so despite their concerns, they have both voted to support this request of the, by the college.
So at this point, the only way I can see possibly, if the city and the county both agree, is that the college take out a bond or some sort of way to get the 3.5 million, and enterprise zone payments are dedicated for 15 years to pay that off. And I don't think it would be that much of the 1.2 plus million. There would be a lot left over, but that's the only place I see we could look. And what I'd like is I'd like, you know, the city manager, the finance officer to tell us, is there any way that that can be done? Because I don't see any other way. We don't have $3.5 million. in our back pocket. We do have the, at least 1.2 million for 15 years that hasn't been allocated. So that's the question, whether or not this would be a use of part of that money.
I have a question. Do you just need a commitment by January for the 3.5 million, or do you need cash in hand, and when are you planning to break ground?
Yes.
Yes.
Unfortunately, we do need to have a dedicated bank account, 7.3 million in cash in January.
Okay.
When in January is subject to some interpretation, I believe. The state would issue its bond, its 7.3 million bond in March or April of 2019. We would conduct architectural and engineering through the remainder of the year, probably into 2020, break ground in 2020. We would have 3 years, again subject to negotiation with the state, possibly more, but 3 years to complete the project. The state is viewing this as a single project, skills center and housing, separate structures, but one project, one funding pot.
And will the ballot measure that's on for this fall with public-private affordable housing impact your potential opportunities for funding, the extra 3.5 million?
The school bond measure,
No, the property tax
Oh.
measure, there's, it allows public and private finances to, it sort of defines it. So it allows it to go in together and fund affordable housing.
If I may
Yes,
add to
please.
that, I also am familiar with that, and what it does is it's voter approved. So I'm afraid the timing,
have to go.
if it passes, we still wouldn't have the proper timing to go to the voters and ask for that. And what it is the cities would be able to bond for housing that wouldn't be publicly owned, which is different than how it is now. City of Portland's been sponsoring that bill. So even if it passed, I don't think it would meet their timeline.
Thank you.
Yeah.
we had a similar concern with lottery bond funding. Those would not be sold until actually later in the spring in 2019, and so would not be available for match.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Just to
thank you.
remind everybody, we reported some time ago that myself and Scott Hagee, as representative of the two entities, held meetings with all of the people who have districts that are in the enterprise zone and listened to their requests, et cetera. But no decisions were ever made because of the fact that we didn't know when the money was coming in. So that discussion is still open. And I would hope that we would have that discussion. I think an inquiry to the county indicated that they haven't had that discussion yet. But this is a discussion here. If we could, get some workup from the staff and bring it back on the 24th or whatever is the council's pleasure, at least we would have more information. But I think this is just a starting point.
And regarding the county discussion, as of this afternoon, I believe we have that scheduled tentatively for the 19th of this month, I believe, doing a presentation to the county.
So I have a question, Dan. And I don't want you to misunderstand this question, but, reading through your own material and the trend of declining enrollment in community colleges, is this investment going to be the magic solution to the declining enrollment? I mean, I realize you're a pretty optimistic kind of guy.
I'll love to answer
but
that question, Counselor.
I'm concerned that we make a substantial investment in this and it turns out to not.
No, I would not be bringing it forward if I had any doubts on that one, Counselor. First off, to decline in enrollment, we're actually up 5% as of today.
Excellent.
Good news and going along in that direction. Regarding your broader point, and it's critical, Dr. Marta Kroning, when she was still in the interview process as our new president, was asked the question, what is your vision for the institution? And she replied, she wants to see it as a destination institution. Given the critical shortage of housing that we have in our community, it's difficult to realize that vision without the resource, without the tool to go along with it. Campus housing provides that tool, enables us to market the institution not only to our local region, but as a destination, the only institution of higher education in the Columbia Gorge National Scenic Area. With the expanded programming that we can offer, that becomes one component. Still to your question, though, no, it's not the only answer. Sponsored dual credit, distance learning, those are other tools that we bring to the table on this thing. There is no one single answer. The college, as with almost all community colleges, there's an inverse relationship between the economy and enrollment. When people are working, they are disinclined to enroll in community college. This housing and this skill center gives us a couple of tools to help divest ourselves from that. Not the only ones, but important ones.
Yeah, I like the concept. I'm always nervous about the money.
It's a good question. It's a good question.
I think the reason why I see it, I see so many people, and we're talking about companies in this community looking for skilled work, and workers, I mean, and they're having trouble finding them. And I've always been in favor of a skill center. I think this is probably one of the most important decisions this community could make in the next year.
I would certainly second that, biased as I am, Mr. Mayor, in behalf of this project. But in meeting personally with companies up and down the Columbia Gorge these past 2 years, you hear the same thing over and over. We cannot find skilled workers. This community college is one of our two primary roles. First off, to give students a affordable avenue into a four-year continuing degree, but also to provide them the option of 9 months, 1 month certificate, short-term training that gets them into a family wage job, and that means career technical education. We need the facility to do it.
So Dan, there's 7 letters of support attached to this. Is there anything other than a letter of support that they're coming across with?
Those letters of support were in request from our college board, kind of building on Councilor Brown's question. If you build this thing, is the interest going to be there? So those letters are our first step. We go to the companies and initiate the conversation. I'm going to go back to our experience with renewable energy. We started the program, and it wasn't until we had the program actually started that we could go to the companies and say, okay, we've done our part. Now, will you do your part? And they did. They did. I can think of $600,000, $700,000 donations, basically from individual companies that supported what we were doing in renewable energy. I see no reason why that same thing wouldn't happen here, but we don't have the specific program started. We cannot until we know we have a place to put it. It's a chicken and egg thing. We'll be going back to them. Oh, yes.
Is there anything that the council would like in terms of further information that maybe staff could address, or how do you want to go about this?
I think until we,
Pardon me?
I think until we know what we can do, I don't know how we can move forward. If we, obviously, if we don't have this pot of money in front of us and we don't know what it's going to be when it gets there.
Well, we do know it's at least 1.2 million a year. We do know that. And it's not been decided how to use that. So.
But there's a lot of ifs involved in, I mean, we're not the only people with our hand out.
No, the county's a partner. They have to decide. Whatever the recommendation of this body is, has to be the same concurrent recommendation that the county does. Under the enterprise zone system, we are the sponsors and we make those decisions. Now, obviously, it's supported by the community. It's supported by our two biggest critics in how we've spent it in the past. So I find that as being pretty positive for us to look at possible ways of how we could do this.
I agree with that completely, but at this point, other than having a conversation, I don't know what else we can do. I mean, we need to know what the county wants to do, and I mean, there's a lot of conversations. I'm in favor. I like it. I think it's a great, it'd be a great asset for the community. It's super. I just want to, there again, it's about dollars and knowing for sure before we bail into something that we can put it together. I mean, I think we need to have a few more answers, not from you, but from our partner as far as.
We have a special meeting on the 17th. Are we inviting the county to that meeting or
The workshop, you
the
mean?
workshop?
We didn't specifically, no.
Okay.
I think we need to have a joint work session with the county for sure, and probably some of the other partners who are affected, and then also open it up to public discussion. This is a big ask, it's a big decision, we need as much input as we can get.
Yeah, my only request is that we try to move expeditiously because of the January deadline.
Right.
So, I don't know.
I-
I'll leave that to your wisdom.
Thank you. I'll work with the county administrator and maybe wait till after their meeting and then get together with him and see if we can put together a joint meeting and come up with some scenarios.
Tentatively scheduled for the 19th. Kathy White and I have been exchanging emails this afternoon. I think we're looking at the morning of the 19th for the county commission presentation.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right. And by the way, our work session, which is about building codes, they're gonna address building codes also on the 19th. Our work session's on the 17th, so just so the council knows, we need to be aware of that.
Did I mention construction trades? Yes.
So, nothing more? All right, this meeting's adjourned, thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.